Yo, Pierre, you want to come out here?
Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Opportunity Knocks podcast. I'm here with Mike from Veseris. We've been working with him for a few years now to learn about the pesticide and pest control industry in general. He's been super helpful with getting us the products we need across the country. And he's going to give us a bit of a deep dive today on some of the products, the industry in general, whether the products are safe or not, and then just also this larger pest control space that Insight hasn't really tapped yet because we're only kind of in that residential market. So we're here to learn about all things pest control.
Well, we'll figure it out as we go along.
Yes, sir.
But definitely we have some opportunity here to talk about the industry. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I've been with pest control companies, one of the largest, and then I switched over to the distribution side of the business, and I've been doing that for the last 15 years. So.
Yeah. And so tell us about how Veseris got started in Canada here and how you were part of that process.
Well, it was originally Univar. We were part of I think more of a $7 billion organization that was just in chemicals. And so I started with them originally back in 2011. It wasn't in Canada, but they had an opportunity to come to Canada to do distribution. And because I've had a lot of experience, I ended up being the first employee for Univar Canada to start the structural industry.
That's hired cool.
Hired a CSR, hired a warehouse person.
Yeah.
And then just did what we had to do. Similar, I would say, to you guys when you first started. You do what you have to do to grow the business. Mm-hmm. And so somewhere along the way, Univar decided that they didn't want to deal with the small company because they were a $13 billion chemical company. And we got bought by an equity company probably about 4 years ago and changed the name to Veseris. And since then, we've continued to grow, and we're the largest distributor of chemical product into the structural industry right now. So
very interesting. Yeah,
it's been fun being the first. You don't get those opportunities. You don't get opportunities to start businesses in Canada very often. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of fun.
Yes,
Hard work, but fun.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask about that, because for our space, the difficult part is getting the customers and not so much securing suppliers. But I would imagine for you guys, it might be more difficult to secure those relationships with the actual chemical companies that are producing these products than maybe it is to find people to sell to. Am I right in saying that? Or
well, I would say anything in this industry is about relationships. Having been in the industry for 20 years, the relationships with the supplier manufacturer side is critical, because when you ask for something and you're growing their business, you're going to get it. Mm-hmm. But I think it goes beyond just a financial relationship. We sell you product, we buy the product. You actually develop a relationship personally with a lot of these people. It's similar to what you would need to do with your customers. If you're doing a good job and you develop a relationship with them, mm-hmm. you deal with the people. It's really the people that you deal with, and it's not necessarily the company. Mm-hmm. Any relationship. When I worked for Agrium, in between all of this, it was another distributor to the market. They're no longer around, but people followed me after I left Agrium and came to Univar Veseris.
Yeah,
it's because if you give them your word and you deliver on the service, similar to you guys, it's going to grow the business. Simple as that.
People want to work with people they trust, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting. And so when COVID hit and all these like supply chain issues happened, did we find out who the favorites were, or were people pretty fair about distributing product to all the different companies?
Well, I would say a couple of things about COVID. We actually thrived during COVID. We became an essential service. Mm-hmm. So that was really a big thing that was announced, because bugs aren't going away.
Yeah.
And the reality during COVID, with everybody staying home, people going to their cottages, guess what? Oh, we have ants during the day. You leave in the morning, no ants. You come home, no ants. But when you're at home and you're seeing the mice, and so our business actually grew quickly during COVID. The challenge was supplies.
Yeah.
Bottle caps, bottles, jugs, any labels, marketing material, boxes.
Yeah.
And that became the challenge. And, suppliers had to balance it out for the most part. But, in all honesty, it's like you do what you have to do. You sell what you have to do. You might have to use an alternative product. But the hardest part was sourcing product, sourcing the things they needed. So the first year was easy because everybody stockpiles that, and from a supplier point of view. After that, it's all bets are off, right? So,
and is there some secret sauce to forecasting this stuff? I know we've made your life hell because we don't do any sort of forecasting. But like, do you just have a bunch of like, I guess, nerds, for lack of a better word, that are doing this stuff? I'm a nerd, so I can say that. But
I would say initially it was. I mean, we were so small. We did what we needed to do to grow the business. We have systems. We had systems in place that have been replaced that are a lot better. We've hired a supply chain manager. We have a purchaser out of Houston. So we have a lot more things in place than we did in the past. It was kind of, how would I say it? Going by the skin of your teeth and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Right. And, but yeah, now it's a lot better. It's going to be a lot better with you guys once we get a year under our belt so that we can at least have a forecast and know when the best things to bring in, the best times to bring it in. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting how business changes like that. When you go from a small operation, it's just like, we got to go by feel. And then as you get bigger, now you can finally bring in the details and the projections and all that.
Well, I would say it's good and bad because, when you're smaller, you can make decisions like that. When you become corporate, you gotta sell your vision of what you can do and how much you can bring in, and sales becomes, important, but then so does finance, and so does, inventory, and all those pieces pull together. So, there's good and bad to both sides because technology, you have to use technology. I look around here and technology is phenomenal from what it used to be.
Yeah.
We had customers that would be using, the flip phones, the faxes.
Yeah.
They weren't keeping up with technology really in our industry. And now everything's done on phones and everybody's communicating online, ordering online. All those things have changed the way it used to be, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. Brendan will tell stories about knocking pest control back in the day. And we take pictures of our contracts. We type them into the system. It goes through all these steps, but he would just walk up to the truck, put it underneath the windshield, and that was the next one the technician would do.
Right.
Or they'd have to go back to the office at the end of the day and put them in a drop box. It's crazy how that changes, right?
And I think it's for the better, but people have to stay up with technology. If you don't stay up with technology, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
And so maybe that's a cool segue into just the products themselves as technology, right? And there's often this pull between we're really tightly regulated, that's annoying, and then also we're really tightly regulated. Look how safe the products are in the industry, and look at the wealth of data we have on them. And so have you seen a lot of changes in the pest industry over the past few years in terms of new products coming online, regulations and that stuff?
We call the government sales prevention because that's a reality. When you go down to an American show and you see all the chemicals that are available down there and how little we have up here, I think it makes us stronger because we have to come up with a solution with the products we have.
Yeah.
And there's minimal products that we can use. The government is just going through a whole thing right now of reevaluating products, taking products off the market because they want to make it safer. Right. And that's the key overall. But for us, we have to convince suppliers that it's worthwhile coming to Canada with their products, that they're going to get a return at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge, because if they're not going to get a return, why are they going to invest in the process of going through the whole PMRA,
years and millions of dollars,
and dollars, and find out they're selling, 100 units. It's just not going to happen. So that's our biggest challenge, and our government is our biggest challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
So
we've been really lucky these past few years. We got Polyzone, which we love now, and Seclera as well.
So the nice thing is when you've got companies like Bayer that's now Enview, so you're seeing that mergers going on all the time. They just purchased FMC, who makes Dragnet. So a lot of change is happening. A lot of companies are merging together. A lot of companies are buying different companies, but they have the resources available. When you look at a Bell Labs who does rodenticide, largest rodenticide in the world is contract.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that and they're selling that, they can come to Canada. They can afford to do that. Some of the smaller companies can't, right? And that's the challenge we have. Is we're kind of coming in like this. But Enview is willing to put Bayer. Not everybody knows Enview yet
Yeah.
They used to be bare, but when they come out with Polyzone, it's huge here in Canada. It's huge, but they've worked it. They've worked around the label requirements that the PMRA is going to have. They're trying to meet, the safety that people are expecting, the protective gear you're supposed to be wearing. And if you do all those things, you're going to get positive feedback from the government. If you're not, you're going to be in trouble. There are products that are still being worked on now that are in the chain that I can't talk about, that are in the channel, but could be 2 years away.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay. Like game-changing products, or?
I think that would help us. We're running out of products that have powder in it, that have, good labels.
Yeah.
So there's things that are coming, I think, that are on the way. But again, as they bring product on, they usually take product off the docket, as they say.
Yeah.
So, they're trying to, even suppliers are trying to make it so that they have a good solid lineup of products, and they don't want to go and have 20 SKUs in Canada. So they want to reduce that. So if you see a roach bait going away, it's probably a better roach bait. You look at Max Force in Canada that they have now, Impact, it's 5 generations behind what's in the US right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Which they like to say over and over again every time we go down to their conferences and that. Yeah. Right. I'm interested to know about the exclusive deals that suppliers will get sometimes, because a lot of salespeople who listen to this podcast, and so that's going to be a pretty cool sales, I guess, pitch, right? To say, give us your exclusive distributing rights. Have you been a part of any of those deals, or?
What do you mean from a supplier perspective?
Yeah, where it's like we're the only company that can distribute your product. Is that common, or?
Well, I think it used to be more common. And again, I'm speaking from personal thoughts and experiences. I don't think it's good for the industry.
Yeah,
because I think you need competition. Now we have several ourselves. We deal with VM Products, which is the easy, secure that you guys buy from us. And they're an amazing company, a young company like yours, always thinking outside the box, always trying to come up with the better mousetrap.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job. And they're exclusive with us because they're exclusive with all of Veseris. We're in Mexico, we're in the US, and we're in Canada.
Yeah.
So we bring a lot of business to them, a lot of stability, and that's something we lead with. But overall, you have to be careful with exclusives because the supplier deals with one distributor. But if they don't have access to others, well, that's not a good thing to me.
Yeah.
Because there's certain competition that will not buy from us, and that's a reality. And they would not be able to have that product. So there's times and places, but there used to be a lot more exclusives in the past. But if suppliers want to increase their revenues in Canada, I don't think they can afford to do exclusives.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not unless you have a big U.S. company on your back helping you get those numbers.
Yeah. Well, especially with how spread out the country is too, right? Like there's a couple of big population centers, but so many people out in the woods.
Well, it's interesting when you look at Canada and everything's on the 49th parallel and we're just on that border. There's not a lot of, you look at Saskatchewan, what do they have, 4 million people in the whole province?
Yeah.
Saskatoon and Regina. So how much revenue are you really going to get out of those provinces that are that small and instead of the centers, right? You got Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, so you got your basics. So, I don't know about exclusives. We have a few because of our size and what we do in the US. So we leverage the big gorilla in the US a lot to push for things that we might not otherwise get up here. So we're lucky that way. Yeah,
absolutely. Right? If you're thinking about just the homeowner, right? And so again, you picture a sales guy or girl that might be listening to this. A common objection they might get is, well, I don't want to use, chemicals on my house, right? And do you have some sort of package response as to why, that concern might be misguided, or, if we're applying these by professionals, and if you can talk about maybe regulation. So why should the customer feel at ease knowing that, it's a well-regulated industry and all that?
Well, it's like, I look at it this way. You have plumbers, you'll have electricians, they come in, they charge, they do a good job. That's what they're known for. We kind of get a bad rap because we're dealing with things people don't want to know about. They don't want to know about bed bugs. They don't want to know about rats. They don't want to know about what's going on out there. But our industry, we're professionals. This is what we do. This is what we look after. This is something somebody else doesn't want to do, but it is needed.
Yeah.
Bugs aren't going away. rodents aren't going away. These are the things. Bed bugs were basically gone, and they're back.
Yeah.
They were using some pretty heavy, chemicals back then.
Yeah.
Obviously, the government has toned that down, and nothing is supposed to affect the environment, and it's all, safe. But for me, going to a customer is, mouse feces, rat feces, bird feces. Not that you're doing birds, wasps. What happens? You have wasps, and somebody has a reaction and gets stung. Mm-hmm. You're really trying to protect the outside of their house before anything can get in, so that your family is safe.
Yeah.
I think that's really the focus. We want to keep your family safe. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nasty things outside these four walls that we can help you control and maintain and be safe for your kids. Yeah. I think it's a healthy thing. And you're right. You're going to do things that are going to be safe for the customer. Mm-hmm. There's labels. We have to abide by the labels of the government. The label is the law. So we're not going to put anybody in danger. The government has looked at these products and said, you can use these in these areas. Mm-hmm. So from that perspective, we have you covered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's a mix, and there's a lot of different ways you can look after insects without, using too many chemicals. There's glue boards, there's traps, there's, things that are locked that, their dog's not going to bite or eat, and things like that. So I think it's really, you're going there, you want to develop the relationship, give ease of mind that your house is protected. It's the largest investment you're ever going to make. Yeah. So you want to protect it. You don't need carpenter ants running through your house right now at this point, right?
Well, it's interesting how much people will spend on, not even just their house, but like just landscaping the heck out of their backyard and getting it all done up, and then just getting feasted on by mosquitoes, right? And then they just can't go outside and enjoy it.
Well, this year's been a really good year for the business with mosquitoes, to be honest, because I go outside, I'm mowing the lawn, and you just see the mosquitoes coming up. We've had, hot weather, then rain, hot weather, then rain. Eggs are coming out like crazy. Yeah. But you have to also explain to the customer, you don't want to give harborage to a lot of these. You don't want to put, landscaping right by your house, because guess what? Rats are going to go there, right? Harborage, take it away from the house a little bit, have it away from the walls. Yeah.
Surround your swimming pool and hedges, and then mosquito buffet. Yeah.
Right. And choose what you're going to use. If you're going to use cedar trees, I guarantee you're going to have a lot of mosquitoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you can treat that, then that's something else. But, at the end of the day, all these things aren't going away, but you can prevent how bad some of them can get. Yeah. Right. Which is your preventative, really, more than anything. Mm-hmm. And that's your job, is prevention.
Yeah, get the full IPM sort of approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So how have you seen the pest environment itself kind of shift over the years you've been in the industry? Like, I think ticks have become a lot more prevalent now than they were before. And have we seen that with other insects or rodents?
I would say this: bed bugs probably saved the industry pre-COVID. Yeah, because things were kind of flat and kind of steady, but there wasn't a lot of growth in the industry. Yeah. Bed bugs brought a lot of that back.
Interesting.
Well, there's the fear factor. Interestingly enough, it's not a health issue because they don't pass on disease, but to me, it's a mental health issue. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you have bed bugs in your house, people will pay anything to get rid of them.
Yeah. You're not sleeping. You're not
just sleeping.
Anxious.
You have kids. So that really popped up the industry. And I think, since then, it's been really good. Bed bugs obviously went down a little because all the hotels closed during COVID. Yeah. But they're still there. And I think overall ticks are becoming a huge issue. Yeah. And the challenge is always, people say, well, I don't see it in the news, or I don't see people dying because of tick bites. Yeah. Well, when you add mosquitoes biting you and then people dying, all of a sudden the government will throw a ton of money at it. Yeah. Out in the East Coast, ticks are a huge issue, but it's not a health issue yet. So they limit what you can spray and use to control them. Mm-hmm. To me, it's a big issue. Yeah. It's a big issue. And those are the things, as an industry, as associations like the CPMA, we have to fight for you guys and fight to the government to say, we need these products. We need to do these treatments to make sure that people aren't getting sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
A lot
overall,
of nasty things they carry these days too, right? With
well,
ticks and mosquitoes.
and then and then you have they limit the control of rodenticides in downtown areas.
Yeah. You get a lot of rats in BC now.
Well, you got rats at the port that they were trying to eliminate, and then they brought out no rodenticides. Downtown Toronto, they really don't want you doing rodenticide treatments. Well, now you've got $1 million homes that have rats going across the back of their fences.
Yeah.
And they're not happy.
That's nuts.
And they're not happy, right?
Yeah.
They're burrowing everywhere. It's like the landscape when you started reducing what you can use for landscape. It's like dandelion is the flower of Ontario now, right? Because it's chaos.
You know what's
everywhere.
funny about that? I was talking to a service manager the other day, and they said that so he used to be in lawn care, and they had some entomologists come in, and he was like, carpenter ants are going to be the thing.
Yeah.
They're going to be everywhere because they're taking away all these landscape products. And everyone kind of like laughed him out of the room. And, now he's out there doing carpenter ant jobs 80% of the time, right? That's cool. That stuff changes.
Well, and again, it's the government. And depending on the government, there's a pendulum.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden it'll go to this and you can't use anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then eventually, weeds and everything take over and they say, okay, we'll do this. And it usually will end up balancing out at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's fair. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody sees what it is. But I think there's always got to be a balance of what you can use.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you start taking more and more away, the problem's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
It's like roaches. You can keep them behind the wall. They're still there.
It's always pest pressure coming
There's always
in.
pest pressure and always will be, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so what have you noticed just in the short time working with us over the past few years? Are we wildly different than other pest control companies, or are we just a different flavor of the same sort of food?
You know what? I think people have been trying residential, a lot of the larger companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough challenge to be focused on commercial business for some of the larger companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then do residential.
Yeah.
Because they do what they do because they like it. Do they like going and selling?
Yeah.
A lot of times technicians just want to do the work. They don't want to have to do the selling.
All the customer interaction.
All the customer interactions, stopping what they're doing. So they have programs, but I don't know if the focus is the focus that you guys have.
Mm-hmm.
One, I think from the beginning, since I met all you guys, you're young, you're open-minded,
Mm-hmm.
you're willing to be different, and you got energy, right? And,
Certainly energy. You can hear the sales team through the wall here.
Well, and you have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You have fun. So I think, and you train your people, right? So I've had 2 people come and try and sell me the residential package.
Mm-hmm.
One came up on, I think he was on not a scooter, but
a Segway.
Segway.
Yeah.
And he came up, and that's pretty unique.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very professional. They're not overselling you. They're just having a conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I think not having a hard sell is a good thing.
Yeah.
But being young, they know what they're doing and they want to close the business.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Third time's the charm. So if anyone's knocking in Mississauga.
Well, it was interesting because when he came, the first guy came, that's when I first realized how big you guys were getting, and
Mm-hmm.
you've grown so quickly, so fast. I was actually dusting for ants, and I had product.
Yeah.
And then he brought out his book and showed me all the products that you use, and
Yeah.
I had a good conversation.
That's cool.
with him.
It's a small world like that, right?
Yeah. So.
Do you see any really, I guess, big game-changing tech coming down the pipeline that maybe isn't related to pesticides itself? Because it seems like everything's advancing so fast, and a lot of the software that we're stuck with seems to just not be evolving as quickly as we would like it to. And I see new things like the those bait stations that alert you when something's been in it, but they're quite pricey. And do you see anything cool like that in the pipeline?
Well, it was interesting. I was in the technology world pre-Pest.
Okay, yeah.
When, notebooks didn't exist. They were laptops,
Mm-hmm.
and they were $13,000.
And it weighed probably 20 pounds.
It weighed 20 pounds, full keyboard.
Yeah.
But technology evolves. And eventually you're down to handhelds, notebooks, and things like that. And I think the reality is because you've got to reduce your costs of the technology. You had hard drives that were like this.
Yeah.
Now, once you miniaturize them, but the cost to miniaturize was so high, it wasn't worth coming to market. So I think what's happening with the technology. They've got to bring the cost down. They've got to keep working on it. They've got to keep coming up with better solutions, because I think tracking and being able to get reports that there was activity on a T-Rex in the warehouse, and that way you don't have to go through the whole warehouse because you haven't seen activity, is going to save a lot of time.
For reference to those who are listening, T-Rex is like a really crazy mouse trap.
It's a crazy mouse trap. It's,
rat trap actually, right?
It's a rat. Yeah, the T-Rex.
So if I could do a funny story on the side. Yeah. So a service manager, Keith, he told me he went into I think it was a crawl space of some commercial area, and they had all been triggered, but there was no bodies. And so he's sitting there. He's like, "What the heck's going on here?" Right? Yeah. Opens the first one up, the head pops out. Right. Second one, same deal, just the head. And so he said that the other rats had come by and just devoured the entire body that remained on the other side of the trap. And they did that 5, 6, 7 times over.
Well, it's interesting. The one thing about rats is they're very smart.
Yeah.
And once they start to see a lot of death, they're not coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll go a different way. They'll go the long way. But yes, you talk about roaches, being dirty. And they're really not dirty, because if there's a roach that dies, they eat it.
Yeah.
Because they want to keep it clean.
Or ants too, making little graveyards, taking them out of the nest.
Yeah. So nature's very, very smart on how they do things. And we all probably don't respect, their societies within each. I mean, ants alone have a society. Bees have societies.
Yeah.
It's very unique. But going back to technology, it's coming. It's just slow.
Yeah.
Our industry's not the quickest to adopt all the time. People have been around for years. So they kind of wait and see. It's like Polyzone. Okay, let's try it first. Then it works great. Then a product goes like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Sales go like that. So it's interesting. Technology will come. Bell Labs has invested a lot in their rodenticide traps.
They get some cool demos there too, where you could see like what time of the day they're coming in, and you know, if they go into the bait or if they just walk in the pressure pad and leave. So it'd be cool to see how that stuff evolves.
The key is whether the people in the industry, the pest control companies, can convince larger companies that this is the way to go. It may be a upfront cost, but long term, you're going to be saving on the labor. You're going to be able to give them reports. It's going to be much better for them. And, and in terms of technology on software, I mean, it changes all the time.
Yeah.
And we have a inventory manager solution
that you
guys
are
using right now. And basically, it allows you to control your inventory right down to the truck, right? It allows you to have a better purchasing process.
Yeah. And
those are the things you need to do to make yourselves more efficient, because as everybody knows, it's truck, people, and inventory, your three largest revenue. Revenue sucks. But if you don't control those, it's a hard. You
burn cash pretty quick. Yeah. Just for some extra context for those listening, we'd walk in the warehouse and we'd be like, oh crap, we're completely out of like Dragnet or whatever. And then there's a company down the road. We would just run to their warehouse and we'd be like, we need all the product you have. Like literally take all the skids, which might have been a nice bump in their sales, but we definitely weren't taking advantage of the correct cost of that. And then it's nice to be able to pre-order this stuff and have it show up. So we're excited to adopt all that. And things like that, even that might be a little bit less sexy. Like if we get a 1% increase in our routing efficiency, how many thousands of dollars is that over the year, right? Across the country. So yeah. And any other general remarks on like the industry at large and kind of where we're going over the next few years?
It's an interesting, I think you're going to still see people trying to buy people. But the more people buy, the more smaller companies you're going to get. So, let's say an Orkin buys a big company. Well, maybe someone doesn't want to work for an Orkin or a Terminix or a Rent-A-Kill. Yeah. Well, guess what? They're leaving and starting new businesses. So I think the gap, it's going to be an interesting gap. You'll have the big guys and you'll have the smaller guys. Now, who wants to deal with people that are growing the business, that are having relationships? Because yourselves, I mean, think of how fast you've grown. Now you've got to add structure. Yeah. Right? And now, you're not part of the everyday stuff, which you used to love, but now you got to have structure to grow to the next level. Yeah. Yeah. Right? So there's challenges. I think those that will survive are the ones that pay attention, build on relationships, use the product they're supposed to be using, and service. Service is everything. Relationships, I go back to that. I have people that I can call, and because I don't bug them all the time, you don't want to cry wolf all the time, but when I need something, they'll do it. Yeah. right? So I just think the industry is not going away. Bugs aren't going away. So it's a recession-proof business, which we've seen. So it's the right business to be in. It just doesn't get all the glamour that everybody else gets doing other things, right? So, but you go to a wedding, you go to an event, you start talking bed bugs. You can have a doctor over there. They're wanting to talk to me, right? They wanted to, you go and I travel. I check my bed. I check the headboard. I check all of that. Which seems sick, but
it puts you at ease, though.
But it puts you at ease, myself right?
Too,
You're not sleeping in bed and going,
Yeah.
So I just think it's a great business to be in, and I think we just have to evolve, like everything. You got to continue to evolve. The pests aren't evolving, but we have to evolve. Right. So
beautiful. Well, on that note, I think we'll end it. So thank you so much, Mike, for taking the time out of his busy schedule to impart some wisdom on us. And we'll definitely have you back on here for another episode.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. I think you guys are doing an awesome job. And I look forward to seeing what you guys do next.
Yes, sir. Cheers.
Right, cheers.
Well, we'll see you guys next week for another episode. Until then.
Ciao.